Hello. I was wondering if I might trouble you for a cup of strong black coffee, and in the process engage you with an anecdote of no small amusement.
Hello, Herd, and welcome to another episode of the NerdyVerse series here on Nerd Herder. I'm your herd leader, John Wayne, and she is drinking.
Big ol' sip. I'm drinking tea.
Nice to meet you, drinking tea. This is where we talk about everything not Star Wars. We love Star Wars, but we like to also talk about other things we enjoy, particularly as far as today's episode is concerned. A favorite of ours in the horror film genre. We recently dabbled into this when we talked about the Saw movies, and some folks seem to enjoy that, which was nice. And kind of there we hinted at, well, we like a lot of films actually. There's not just one particular film or a few franchises. We've both been pretty exposed to horror films.
Exposed.
Yeah. Um, and fallen in love with many of them, and so.
Mm-hmm.
Now, although Saw we enjoy, I think that one's a very fun one to talk about, as we did, because there's so much story that's so forgotten or overlooked. But as far as one we actually enjoy watching and talking about, I think ours today is maybe that, I'd say. Something you introduced me to, actually. So,
Yes, I did.
we are talking about the Conjuring series,
Yes.
horror series that just got a new installment, hence why we are talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Hopefully in an effort to encourage you maybe to see the new one, or maybe see any of them if you haven't seen any of them at all.
They're great movies.
They are.
Sit down and watch a couple. I think we're at a point in pop culture in general where people know who Annabelle is.
Yeah, you've definitely
Like,
seen and heard of these movies.
mm-hmm. I remember being a youth, which I don't remember when the first movie came out, but I remember seeing the
2013.
Oh wow, nice.
Yeah, it's older than I thought.
That is older than I thought as well. So I was 17. So
Hmm.
there you go. And watching the Hide and Go Clap
Yeah,
trailer.
they had really good marketing for these movies.
Very good marketing.
And I think that's what most people remember them for. This was definitely a re-injection of, hey, horror movies back, interesting, and everything. And this sort of started a new renaissance, I think, that's brought horror movies back forward, in terms of, looking forward to the next spooky movie. I mean, I think if people hadn't gotten excited for horror movies like this, we probably wouldn't have gotten a new Halloween, and so forth. So I'm not saying that they made sure that we continue to get horror films, but they were definitely happening in the time when it was very important for, wait, hang on, nobody likes horror movies anymore because there was
Mm-hmm.
just that stint in the early 2000s where they all sucked.
Yeah.
And what's funny about that is that began with Saw. So, it's one of those things where it's like we're yet again revisiting a very important bookend or film in horror film history and everything. So,
Yeah.
very interesting, and it's a really great series, and like I said, began in 2013. As so far as getting the first film in the series, we said that it got a new installment. It's technically eighth installment. There are 8 films in this series, although the one that just released is just Conjuring 3,
Mm-hmm.
and that's because it's really not the Conjuring movies. It's the Conjuring universe. That's officially what it's called, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it consists of the story and the characters that began in The Conjuring, but also kind of has, as I describe it, like Monster of the Week spin-offs. So it's like, hey, these main bits are interesting, but here's also these side quests of like, because the Conjuring series is one of those weird ones where it's a twist and amalgamation of true and not true. It's film and it's also based on quote
Yeah.
unquote real events. Now, go ahead by saying
Yeah.
that what we mean by real is
Ed,
specific.
Ed and Lorraine Warren were real people.
Yes, that's where it
Um,
stops. I'm just
my
kidding.
my friend Kara actually got to meet Lorraine Warren.
Mm,
She went to a Catholic college.
that
So,
explains it.
yep. And so Lorraine Warren used to come there and give like chats and talks about the occult and stuff like that. And so she got to meet and talk to Lorraine Warren before she passed.
Interesting.
Which insane. Like if you're a fan of the Oogie Spooky, like I am, you've heard of the Warrens. Like they were at the Amityville house.
Right. Well, what's interesting is
lot
the
of
amount of
stuff.
people that are discovering them through these.
Yeah.
These aren't meant to be documentaries. These aren't necessarily meant to be complete recountings.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, they are films. And I think in a lot of ways, they're very upfront with choices they make for the film versus choices they make for the stories.
Yes.
And you have to process it as that based on true events just means that something happened that we're making a story about.
Yes.
Like, it doesn't necessarily mean we are telling the exact recounting of it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, there's real points. I jokingly say it's just about the Warrens, but no, the cases they handle, like you mentioned Amityville, that shows up at some point. We get a lot of their famous cases,
Yeah.
but then a lot of ones that this series and these characters are known for are not real, or not real in the sense as they appear. So, like the nun, Valak, probably the mascot of this series,
Yeah.
although real in demonology, is not real in any of the Ed and Lorraine Warren encounters, so far as we know.
I had a conversation with someone recently where we were talking about the Conjuring films, and I mentioned, oh yeah, up until recently, the Annabelle doll was at the Warren Museum.
Yeah.
And she looked me square in the eye with horror in her face and said, "The Annabelle doll is real?"
Yeah.
Yes.
And so, and
yes,
Annabelle's a great example of based on real stories, kind of made to work in film kind of things. It's a Raggedy Ann doll. It's not a actually creepy puppet that no one would actually trust.
Listen, man, if I had thought about it previously, I would have gotten my Annabelle doll off the tree.
Right. Well, and it's like, I don't remember the name of the puppet from the Dead Silence movies, but it's one of those things where it's like, this shows up on your doorstep. This is obviously a creepy puppet. This is not meant to actually be enjoyed. This is to scare somebody.
It's not Billy.
Why would you trust it? Although Billy does show up in that movie.
Billy does show up in that movie.
But no, great movie. And so that leads us to our connection, and the name we've been praising as long as we've been talking about horror movies now is James Wan. And so James Wan, Dead Silence, Saw fame. He directed the first film and has had points of interest in producing.
Yes.
He's very much one of those where it's like he likes to start things off and then give it to other people, and he'll support you.
Yeah.
And he supports a lot of creativity. But what's interesting, I recommend if you're interested at all, if you haven't, check out our Saw series, because we're going to kind of bounce back and forth, not too much, but in terms of talking about the makings of and especially as it relates to James Wan. So it's one of those things where it's just like, I think this consistently did better to continue a vision that began in the first one with director James Wan, even though he only produced in the future, except for Conjuring 2. So he only directed 2 of the 8 movies, but
he was the fulcrum.
Yeah, he really set what it was going to look like and feel like and everything, and it's really, really interesting.
Oh yeah. We cannot diminish the fact that these movies are gorgeous.
Yeah, really, really good movies.
Stunning.
And that's the thing, is they know how to do horror. They know how to look good. And that's the thing, is even if you don't account for any of the seemingly real events that go on, it's still a great film series. So like, it's one of those things where it's like, no matter where you kind of come into it or why you watch it, like, you have the means to enjoy yourself.
And like, I'm not a person who enjoys jump scares. Jump scares are a cheap tactic that bad horror directors use to make their films scary.
You mean James Wan and Insidious?
That was a joke.
Not to be confused with The Conjuring, because a lot of people, when this began, Patrick Wilson, James Wan scary movies, like I think they were literally the same year or 1 year after. Like it was a weird time to be alive when you could not tell what Patrick Wilson movie this is. Is this Aquaman? Like, it's ridiculous.
Yes, it is. But yeah.
Also James Wan movie, by the way. Sorry.
You're fine. Jump scares.
Jump scares. Boo.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm not a fan of jump scares normally, but James Wan is a master of jump scares, in my opinion.
Well,
because the hide and go clap scene for one.
Yeah.
The lipstick face demon in Insidious. Like, all of those were done so freaking well.
Yeah, it's really hard to call it jump scares, and that's one of those things where it's just like traditionally you would have treat it like that, but James and everyone that's kind of worked on these movies kept a true sense of no, it's not just out of nowhere. Like, they're working with something to make it make sense. I'll say in the third one, there's a couple where I'm just like, dude,
Come
really?
on, man.
But for the most part, none of it feels like it's completely out of nowhere just to scare you for no reason. A lot of it's misdirect. A lot of it's, just trying to amplify suspense. It's not just, well, we don't have anything really scary, so let's just make loud noises and that's
Mm-hmm.
that's not scary movies and
No.
Paranormal Activity kind of made that popular. Not that Paranormal Activity did it exclusively.
No.
They had a tendency, but it started the trend of
Yes.
just bang things, just make loud noises. Don't actually accomplish anything in the scene. The entire scene is just the drawer closed. Like
Yeah.
that's not accomplishing
That's
anything.
why The Marked Ones is the best Paranormal Activity movie,
Absolutely.
in my opinion.
Maybe we'll talk about those movies if you're interested. So, like I said, began in 2013 with the first film, but I was surprised to find out this actually began 20 years before. It was really weird.
Weird.
So, Ed himself, Ed Warren, actually sat down and played tapes from real cases with a producer. I'm trying to figure what agency he was with or whatever, but I guess it was just a friend or something, but he sat down with him, played him some tapes, and was quoted as saying, if you can't make movies out of this, I don't know what you can do. So, yeah, I mean, it's going to come up where Ed and Lorraine Warren, did they believe? Maybe. Did they
Okay.
market it and take advantage of it?
Yes.
Maybe. I mean, it's really complicated.
It's incredibly complicated. Like, I don't know what to think of the Warrens.
You are much more into their history than I am.
Yes. Yeah, like I have so many complex feelings about the Warrens. Like you said, I do believe that they genuinely thought that they were helping people at certain points. But they did monetize it, which is I don't know. I don't know. I don't think that they exploited people, but I also think that they may
I
have gotten caught up in it a little
I
bit.
think it's even more complicated because even by thinking um, you're helping people, you can still be doing the wrong thing. Like, there's the case of the family that ended up like suffocating and killing their child by trying to give her some sort of like claustrophobic therapy or something like that, or
Yeah.
whatever the technical term for it is. Um,
Rebirth therapy.
yeah, it's this idea of, she needed to be born again, more physical than spiritual, in order to be the kind
Yeah.
of child she was supposed to be. And they ended up killing her. And it's like her parents and the people putting on that therapy thought they were helping, they believed in it.
Yeah, that is a
Um,
horrible story.
and I'm not trying to draw parallels, but it's just one of those things where it's like, these experiences, whether you believe they were supernatural, demonic,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever, are traumatizing experiences to go through.
Yeah.
And to have that either suppressed or enhanced by demonologists, exorcisers,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, it's. I don't know that you can call it closure.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can ever really move forward without carrying a lot of baggage from these
Yeah.
experiences. So yeah, I have feelings about it, and I'm not trying to say what is and isn't. I don't think
No.
we are. It's just more of a. It's really a well worth deep dive to study the Warrens for yourself, to see what is real and
Yeah.
isn't real. As much as these films are great to enjoy, when you do realize these are real people and technically real events, no matter whether the supernatural is real or not, it starts to get this next level of intrigue. It's not just entertainment. Then it's awful. It's a character study. It's a commentary. It's really weird. And I don't think the answer is to be anti-church either. I
No.
mean, it's one of those things in general. I don't think just because some people are bad at it that it's worth throwing everything out. But I also don't think it's a complete advocacy of, well, no, if they really believed it, I think it's complicated. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's messy.
Yes.
So, and Ed coming in and saying make movies out of this doesn't help that case. So he went there, and it was basically a 14-year back and forth before they finally got it to where, hey, let's make some movies, but who's going to make them? and there was this bidding war, like this, and that's the stuff with these stories is people knew they would make money, and
Mm-hmm.
people wanted in on that.
Amityville.
Yeah, so and that's the thing. So stories of that kind, but you notice in those instances, Ed and Lorraine Warren aren't a focus. It's just about the story leading
Yes.
up to that, and that's because there was a custody battle essentially for the Ed and Lorraine Warren stories.
Mm-hmm.
It was really weird. The most compromise that was able to happen is The Haunting in Connecticut.
Such a
That
good
movie came out of this bidding war, and so it's one of those things where it's just like even though the stories we were hoping to, well, the stories now we enjoy that we got, and the stories they were hoping to make were kind of in limbo. Some good things were happening, like Amityville and Haunting in Connecticut, but eventually, New Line Cinema ended up with the films and started the journey of producing these movies. And a lot of folks, and actually, along with James Wan, some of the writers and screenplayers, Chad Hayes and Carrie Hayes, had hands in actually getting the first movie done and kind of circled back around a couple of times to say, hey, yeah, that's cool, that's fine, that can happen.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a journey to get these things. And so it's not so much that, hey, we're waiting for this opportune time to tell these stories. We could have gotten these stories 20 years ago with completely different actors, completely different intentions. I think at least with what we got, they're I don't most times I don't think they're trying to make the Warrens the heroes all the time.
Mm-hmm.
um, they definitely aren't trying to tarnish them, but that's because they're working with her. By this time, Ed had passed and everything, so like I don't think you want to bash the person that's helping you make these movies. But I do think they do an appropriate amount of skepticism and everything. And again, by adding to it by saying, yeah, this is where we do our movie stuff, and then there's the story stuff.
Yeah.
Shows like they're trying to pad it out as well. They know this is a good story, real or not. So,
Oh yeah.
and at the end of the day, people talking about is it real, is it not, is just free marketing essentially.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean.
Right. So yeah, so we start off with The Conjuring, and again, that's the main hub of films is Conjuring 1, 2, and now 3. The third one's the first one with a title to it, and I really like it, and they make it work in the
Yep.
end. Conjuring 3, The Devil Made Me Do It.
Which is such a good title for
If
that
your
movie.
tickets are as cheap as ours were, and if your theaters are as safe as they are, then please check it out. It's a really, really good movie.
Oh yeah.
It's crazy we're getting so many scary movies for the summer blockbuster season, but I mean, it's movies. We haven't been to theaters in forever. It's nice to have
Yeah.
good stuff again.
We didn't have the January dump of this is all the horror movies that they don't think are going to be successful.
Exactly. So we kind of got it pushed back. I think it's cool. I think people are. It's one of those things. I think people are desperate enough to go to the movies. They'll see movies they wouldn't normally see, which
Mhm.
hopefully means Spiral and this and so forth. Because they're good movies.
Dude, Halloween Kills. It's coming.
It is coming. Got to get it in before all the Marvel stuff starts happening, and
Yes.
everybody's gonna go to that. Um, and so yeah, Conjuring happens, and then immediately followed up with a spin-off. I don't know if that was ever the intention, but
I think they were always going to tell Annabelle's story at some point.
I would say it's their,
Yeah.
Valak is the fictional mascot. I think Annabelle's the real mascot
Mm-hmm.
in the sense of the Warren stories. Like, I think that is what they're most associated with.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's funny that that's so popular and yet so few people actually know the real story of it and everything.
Yeah. In question,
Mm-hmm.
who do you think is scarier? The nun, Valak, or Annabelle?
I
Who would you rather be in an elevator
uh
with?
um Annabelle, I
Yeah.
guess. I mean, but who would I rather be in an elevator is based more on what's more manageable, I guess. So
What can you punt?
I think Valak is more unsettling,
Mm.
just because they aren't tied to anything.
Mm-hmm.
The spirit is attached to the Annabelle doll, so it's ultimately the doll with the power, and I can kick that. So I would survive a Child's Play movie.
You would, because you would just kick Chucky in the
Right.
face.
So, the Conjuring movie is very, very good. Let me scroll to. So this deals with the Ed Lorraine story um, of
Boop, boop.
tell me investigated the curse at a farmhouse in Harrisville, Rhode Island. So this is the
Yes.
clap and seek or hide and
Yeah.
clap.
one of the best setups for a scare later in the movie is when they move to the farmhouse.
Yeah.
The girls, they have four daughters.
They have too many.
They have several. They have several children, and they play a game called Hide and Go Clap, which one of the daughters.
Kind of like Marco Polo.
Exactly. They have a blindfold on.
Or Chris Columbus.
They have a blindfold on, and it's hide and seek with blindfold,
Yeah.
and you get a hint
With the
by clapping,
hmm
and that is such a good setup.
Yeah, it
in
sets
my
up the
opinion.
spirit later.
Mhm.
And so ultimately it ends up being, so uh, the story of this one is a possession story, pretty straightforward. The mother is possessed by the spirit of Bathsheba. Um, Interestingly enough, that wasn't a Warren thing. The mother herself claimed that.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know if it was before, during, or after the events, but she was the one that put the name on it, which was weird.
Yeah.
Fun fact: the Warrens never completed an exorcism with her. They were kicked out of the house before they could ever actually accomplish anything. So
Mhm.
technically, this movie ends halfway through.
Yep.
We don't even get the Elvis scene or anything. So,
Such a good scene.
but yeah, it really set up the beginnings of, it's not just we're constantly in terror or anything. It does a lot of work, and all the films to follow continue it of, we want you to care about these characters. We want you to be scared because you're interested and invested in these characters. And so
Mhm.
they spend a lot of time, and this is where I say they kind of glorify the Warrens, but it's one of those things, who else is going to do it? They're your main characters.
Yeah, and there's stories about how charming the Warrens were and how
Oh, yeah.
kind they were, and I think that's
Yeah,
true.
well, that's what lends to a lot of I think they believed it. I think they were
Yeah.
trying, and it's one of those things that muddies the waters of intent and everything. Is it just negligence or is it actual exploitation? I don't know. It's complicated, but overall, it uses the Warrens as a means of. It's not just spiritual exorcism; it's also like social exorcism. It's just this thing of getting people that believe you're going through something, getting people that are there to try and help you when. I mean, so many people. I mean, we especially
Dude.
see it in the second Conjuring of just like, no, very quickly to just say, no, it's not trauma, it's not real, it's not this, you know. And even if it's not a demon, your
What
kid's
is
still
it?
messed up.
Yeah.
So it's like it's still something. And that's the beauty of the Warrens is
Yeah.
even when they're like, it's fake, it's not, they don't walk out, they still want to help you. So
Mhm.
I appreciate that, whether that's fictional or not, that these stories take that approach.
One of the best movies that deals with elements like that is The Last Exorcism.
Mm-hmm.
If that's a movie you've ever seen, except for the last 15 minutes, like I don't like that ending.
Mm.
But I highly recommend it if you are a fan of stories like that, where it's like, is it real? Is it not?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Could be.
Until Conjuring 3, the first film has the best resolution, since you're speaking of endings. Not obviously of this series, but
Yes.
yeah, the series definitely suffers from a very rushed ending of like, we spent so much time getting to know the characters, getting some scares. We
Yeah.
get to the point where like, oh, we have to resolve it.
Time again for the big boo.
Yeah, it's just like, it in a lot of cases, it's very much a really quick push just to, all right, and we're done,
Hmm.
to get that happy ending. But this one has a really good one. This very solid film, the first one.
Oh yeah.
And then Annabelle less so. So Annabelle, that film focuses on slightly the real story as the setup, but then the rest of the story is very much a little more fictitious because
Yes.
it's now I kind of like the approach of, hey, we're taking a seemingly real story and then following up with our own,
Yeah, and
because they do that with La Llorona as well. So
that was better. Yes.
yeah,
Good job.
so
You actually pronounced it a little bit more correctly.
right,
Yeah. So it's kind of their first attempt at an origin,
yeah,
when in
well,
reality,
yeah, and
not an
also,
origin.
hey, the the Warrens aren't the only interesting thing in the story. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
the artifacts are the most interesting story. Like, you could have you could seemingly see the series going on forever, where it's just based on a different thing in their little museum collection and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But you obviously start with the most famous with
Of
Annabelle.
course.
It's a fine film. It's all right.
It's okay. Like I like elements of it. I think that the opening is pretty cool. I
Hmm.
like the main character's relationship. I think that was very
You
cute and very
definitely
well
get
done.
a very stereotypical black spiritual pseudo mother in this
I
one, where it's just like white woman don't know what to do. Ask the
yeah,
first black woman you
that's
encounter.
that is a trope that has been in horror for a very, very long time is the magical black person.
Yeah,
Like or magical indigenous person or magical native person. Like
but
it's
and anyone that's not white is just magical,
exactly.
which is true, but it's also condescending. Yeah,
Clip that. That's going
but
on the board.
yeah, it's okay. It's the second film in the series. It's not
Yeah.
centered around all the things that make the first one good.
Yeah.
Ideally, the main characters and actors. You got Patrick Wilson and Via Farmiga. Is that how you
Yeah.
pronounce her name? And so it's
Yeah.
like they kind of make the movie, and then you basically
Delightful
build
people.
this on other. I think people do a good job with the movie. It's just more so it's missing elements that made the first one so popular.
Hmm.
Hence why they quickly circle back to The Conjuring 2 and pick up
Which
with the
yeah,
all the pillars that made the first great.
The Conjuring 2 is my favorite
Yeah, it's the
Conjuring
best
movie.
one. It's
It
the
is
best of the
so good.
series.
This is another one of those movies that it hits every single like box that I have that makes a great horror movie. It has scary kids. It's got an exorcism scene. It's got Javier Botet.
Hmm.
All things that I love. Like it's so much fun.
Yep. So, wanting to make sure we highlight the instances of the story so that you guys can check it out on your own.
Yes, please.
Obviously, you can watch these movies. They don't replace actually getting the facts of these stories, although I don't think at this point you can get the facts of these stories. But Conjuring 1, the first film, deals with a haunting in the farmhouse in Harrisville, Rhode Island. I can't find the family name right now, but
I don't remember.
yeah, if you look up that Ed
It's
and
one of
Lorraine
the
Warren, Rhode
yeah.
Island, you'll find it. Obviously, the second one deals with Annabelle. This one deals with the Edenfield poltergeist in London in
A
1977.
very famous poltergeist story.
Very
It
one of
was
the
not just
biggest.
the Warrens.
No, no, no. It was one of the first. I mean, almost worldwide phenomena when it came to
Yes.
like paranormal. Like you would
Dude.
occasionally get, oh, haven't you heard about the local town haunting? But like, no, you'd never get something that was this covered and one of the most documented cases from not only the Warrens but of poltergeist in general.
Yes.
A lot of the stuff we're talking about of the muddied water, is it real, is it not, began here. Whereas many a time before, it would just very much be, well, you're the spiritual experts. We'll take. No, this one was very much
Yes.
hindered, helped, supervised. I don't know everything. It was very covered.
Dude, have you ever heard the tapes from the interview with the
Mm,
ghost?
yeah,
Dude.
and that's what's interesting. And they highlight some of that stuff
Hmm.
in these films and the credits and everything. They do a very good job of recreating the facts they do have. That's the thing. They
Hmm.
focus on what they have and then fill in the rest. So, it is one of those things. They're going off the reports. They're going off the history and everything.
Yeah.
And so you mentioned Amityville earlier. This one opens with that. And so this opens with their experiences with Amityville, although it pads that out as well to kind of make it seem like something else is good. They insert an overarching story,
Hmm.
right? And so in the first one, there's some happenings, but really here's where they're like, there's a conjuring story. So we're not just talking about the true events. We're also creating a story, and that involves Valak, who's kind of the personal blight to the Warrens in
Hmm.
in this fictional universe. Because I guess you have to have a
You got to.
rival.
You got to, man. Like they are the Caldra. No, that what is the he fights Apollo Creed in Rocky 3.
If you asked me at any other point in life, I could have told you, but now you've given me a setup and I cannot follow through.
What
I
is his
must
name?
break you.
That guy.
Yeah.
That one.
Carl Drago.
Yes,
And
that's him.
so, yeah, and so I think it was to make sense of this one because this one is not resolved. This one does not have an answer, does not have a resolution. And so I think introducing this mascot Valak was a way of, all right, we've got to create a purpose, a
Yeah.
meaning, because in this presentation of the films, we're operating as if we believe, right? So they had to give something to believe in this case. And so it's all sort of an orchestrated thing by Valak, who personally hates the Warrens for some reason. Um, that's where it kind of roundabouts to.
The Nun. That's where it gets started.
What do you
Do you
mean? Oh,
remember?
that's right, because her
Circles
ancestor.
around.
That's right. Okay,
Yep.
good advertising. We'll get to the nun.
Thank you.
So yeah, so Conjuring 2, really, really, really good one. If not a really, really complicated story,
Very
and so
complicated.
a great one to check out. So then off after that, they circle back after learning a little bit more of the filmmaking side of things and come back to Annabelle for the best Annabelle movie, in my opinion.
It's
Next
very
to
good.
Conjuring 2, this is my favorite.
It's very good.
Annabelle Creation, out in 2017. And so this is, as it sounds, an origin story.
Another
Largely,
one.
yeah, well, a largely fictitious. So the first one was more an origin story of let's show the real case that began uh,
Yes.
the at least the real life events. This is largely uh, kind of woven of a lot of not solid information, a lot of conjecture, and all this other like I can't even begin to understand how much of it is based on
Yeah.
anything real or not.
Do you want me to tell you the real story?
Of Annabelle?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it was like the nurse, right?
Yeah, it was a nurse and her roommates living together. Her mom bought her a doll. They'd been having like poltergeist activity in the house,
Mm-hmm.
and they were like, "Hey, I think this is the spirit of a child.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to inhabit this doll so that you can, tell us what you need?"
Right.
And so they invited Annabelle into this
Which is
doll.
sort of what they introduced in
Yeah.
Annabelle. That
Yes.
like the beginning where we see that the Warrens take custody of Annabelle
Mm-hmm.
comes from that, I believe, right?
Yes. Yes. And
Um,
so, they call the Warrens after the poltergeist activity gets worse.
yeah,
And they're like, yeah, you guys screwed up. That
right,
wasn't a little girl. That was a demon.
yeah. Um, but creation completely alters that.
Yes.
Well, I won't say completely, but largely
Largely.
alters that. Of, I mean, Annabelle was a child. You've got a little religious nunnery for orphans and such. Like, it's just very.
Religious nunnery for orphans?
I mean, it's laden with all the like check boxes of creepy child,
Yeah,
haunting,
Catholicism.
possession, yeah, religion bad, like all this spiritual warfare stuff. It's just really crazy.
Yeah.
And so, but it's really, really good.
Yeah.
So, as much as I say, like, I don't know what it deals with to now, it does end by connecting to the beginning events of the first
Yes.
film. And so, I really say Annabelle is much better when you watch Annabelle Creation first.
Yes.
If you watch that in order, the first film actually, for some reason,
It
just
makes
gets
more
better.
sense.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
just weird, but it works that way. So, if you haven't seen these movies, or if you are like me and had a largely negative opinion of Annabelle at first, which was unfortunately the consensus for a lot of people, then watch Creation and then watch that one. It works a lot better. Most of these movies are an hour and a half to 2 hours at top, so like they're very doable. But Annabelle Creation, very good story, very interesting origin story.
Yes.
Better than the that sounded very negative. I'm sorry.
No,
Better than the next that came after.
we enjoyed it more than the next that come after.
Yes, The Nun. The Nun's a fun movie.
I, I I liked it. I thought
I
it was really fun, like you said.
it's really good. It's just I think my personal issue and it's part of my issue with the resolution of Conjuring 2. I love Conjuring 2 except the last few minutes because it's very much just I'm going to say this demon's name and we're done. And it's just very much like you spent a whole movie and some
Hmm.
ambiguous hints in the first one setting up this very dangerous dark entity and that's what you do, you just say its name and
Yeah.
boom, like and then the nun the same way where it's just like this was such a hyped up mascot of this series, this is such a really good and interesting thing to work with, but we really don't get anything tangible or justifiable for all this hype. Like it's very,
Understandable.
it's just like
Yeah.
you don't actually do anything. It's like Megatron in the Transformers movies. You don't do anything.
Well,
Everybody's so scared of you, but what do you do?
listen, this movie, it has a lot of fun moments. Like, there's a moment where the priest goes to sleep, he wakes up in a grave.
Did you guys
That
know
was cool.
that back in the day they used to bury people
Jesus.
alive, and so they
So,
actually
it's a family
installed
joke. It's
bells
not funny to
on
anyone
the.
else. That is, Josh isn't even
uh,
here.
Oh, but I'm gonna tell them about it.
Yeah, you will.
No, yeah, that's a very real thing. It's a very dark and crazy thing. In fact, I believe
It was
it was
during
a very
typhus.
well. I mean, it went on for a while, but there was a very famous general during the Civil War whose wife was buried
Hmm.
alive as well,
Yes.
while pregnant. And so, but they caught it in time or something
Yeah.
like that. It's very interesting, very interesting. Look into the history of burying people alive.
It's
You
very
know,
interesting.
yeah, I'm
Dude, that's
not
where the origin of vampires comes from.
right. Oh yeah, well, zombies in general as well.
Yeah.
Well, and even the floodings of New Orleans brought about zombies, where it wasn't necessarily the living dead. It was just that the dead were literally rising. Like,
Dude, do you
it's
know
weird.
do you know how nuts it was driving through Biloxi after Hurricane Katrina and seeing people picking up coffins and putting them back in graveyards?
Mm-hmm.
That was nuts.
Mm-hmm. Hence mausoleums in a lot of cases.
Family trauma. No.
So the Nun, though, is a very interesting story. It's one of the ones that really starts to branch out and starts to take better advantage of, like, let's go different. Let's go,
Yeah. Let's
um,
get Catholicer.
yeah, right. And so, but yeah, so I forgot about the element. So the whole Valak thing just comes because Lorraine Warren's ancestor banished the nun before. And
Mm-hmm.
so then she comes back and it's just like, I'll get you, you Warrens
Yeah, the ancestor played by Mia Farmiga's younger sister.
sister. Yeah.
Yeah, which is nuts. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Great way to do it if you can. I mean,
Yes. And the farmer boy that is in this movie who hits on the nun, the younger nun, I can't remember her name for the life of me,
hmm
is the person that they're exercising in the beginning of the first movie.
ah,
Yeah, that's why like that's
oh,
why
that's
it's
right.
important.
He turned, yeah.
That's
So
how
yeah, like,
Valak gets attached to the
but
Warrens.
this isn't entirely fictitious. Just
Yes.
like Valak itself,
Mm-hmm.
other than in reference to demonology, is entirely. This is again just to make the Conjuring stories more interesting.
It's fun.
That's it. It's fun. But again, it's just one of those things where it's a very hyped up character, doesn't really accomplish a lot. So it's more just I'm disappointed. I'm just
I get that.
disappointed. I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed. And then we get finally the Curse of La Llorona, and this was one of the spin-offs, not counting Annabelle Creation. So counting all three Annabelle movies together, I'll say. So you've
Yes.
got the three Annabelle movies. We'll talk about the third one in just a second. The Nun, and now La Llorona. I think that one's the best. La Llorona's, I think, better. Only now that versus Annabelle Creation, no. But in terms of all three movies, where the first and the third are very inconsistent,
Mm-hmm.
I think this one does really well. I thought it was very good.
It was
Oh
decent.
no. I mean, I thought it was interesting. This is the best of, hey, this has nothing to do with the Warrens, but it has to do with a supernatural case.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like this is how it should be done. And again, it does deal with real folklore
Yeah.
too. And so it's one of those things where it's just like it gets into the essence of what I think the Conjuring films try to do and approach anyway, better than completely fictitious Nun.
Yes.
The hey, Raggedy Ann's not scary, so let's make it scary series. I think this one's just purely riding on let's just tell a story as it is and let people decide and let people be scared of it if they want or
Mm-hmm.
think what they want. I just think it does it very well.
Yeah. I think that they really leaned on a great folk tale.
hmm
Like if you've never heard the story of La Llorona, the crying woman, it's it's really cool. It's really
And
cool to learn about.
yeah, and they
A
do a
lady
good
drowned her kids. Let's go. Let's
right
go.
right yeah.
Like
I mean we're talking about very morbid stuff, but I mean it's horror.
yeah.
But looking at the morbid is where you kind of see a lot of interesting commentary and a lot of life lessons if you're looking right, in my opinion. And so,
Don't
but
drown your kids.
yeah. In this one though, they explain the story, and so it's worth watching. If you've got HBO Max, it's on there. All of these movies are on there. Actually, some are on Netflix. You can
Fantastic.
check them out somewhere, or you can rent them for about $2 or $3.99 on Amazon.
Come to my home.
Either
I'll make
way,
you popcorn.
yeah, check it out. But this one, it's a very good story, and again, much like the Nun, it starts to say, hey, well, not everybody has to be white. It's just one of those things where it's like not everything has to be white Southern roots people getting possessed stories, because we've dealt with everything now to this point with very traditional nuclear families, and so getting something more interesting by getting into other communities that also have their own folklore. They also have forks and lore, but folklore
Yeah,
specifically.
I prefer
Um,
folklore.
and it's one of those things. Every culture, every people group, every nationality, everybody's got a story.
Hmm.
Everybody's got something that goes bump in the night,
Oh
and
my
so it's really
gosh.
interesting to move away from Catholicism and all like.
Well,
Let's just get an interesting. Although she does wear a wedding dress, so I guess it's sort of religious. I don't know.
what was the movie that I watched recently that was really good? That took place in his house. His house was really good.
His house
No.
in the middle of his house. I don't know what you're talking about.
It's
I didn't watch it.
well,
I
it's
wasn't
a
there.
really good story about immigrants from really refugees from
Oh
Africa.
no, yeah,
His
I
house.
watched the podcast that you listened to on it, but yeah,
It was
yeah,
so good.
but yeah, exactly.
Going from other cultures.
Yeah, which and that so again, you're dealing with a very morbid story, but that it has roots in that culture and
Hmm.
everything. Um,
And like just the bits of culture that you get from that story make you want to know more, make
yeah,
you want
yeah,
to learn more about what these people have gone through to get to this point.
right. Well, and it's also is it Ghost Dimensions, Paranormal Activity that gets into sort of some Hispanic culture and everything like that.
That's the marked ones.
That is the marked
That
ones.
is the marked
Okay,
ones.
so yeah, similar with that, where it's just like, hey, let's not just make it this white people generational story. Let's just make it a scary story and put it somewhere else.
Hmm.
Let's, it's just again, it branching out and not telling our stories from one side. It just makes it more
Yes.
interesting. We've got a lot of great actors and actresses. The kid actors in this one are
Ooh,
great,
fantastic.
and so, I mean, there's a lot of reasons you can look at it and just be bored, I'm sure, but I think this one is more worth a watch than maybe Annabelle on its own or even Annabelle Comes Home. I think this one does a much better job of keeping some of the essence of these movies of not trying to make you believe it, not trying to entirely and completely entertain you. They're just trying to make a good story a good story.
Yeah.
And I think they do that well, so it's worth a watch. Nothing to do with the Warrens. Again, I think it's worth mentioning. Just because I think that's nice. I think it's refreshing, really.
Yeah.
So then we do get to Annabelle Comes Home,
Yes, we
one of the
do.
more recent ones, and up until The Devil Made Me Do It, the most recent edition, still riding that high of Annabelle's the cool one. I don't know.
Yeah.
Um,
It's one of those movies like I don't remember anything about it.
I mean,
Like
it's got really nothing to do with Annabelle. I'm gonna go ahead and put that out there.
no.
Like if you've seen if you watch the trailer, that's as much Annabelle as you get. Not to spoil too much.
Yeah.
And this is a little more recent, so I
Yeah.
think we've left a lot of the story intact for a lot of these movies. So if you haven't seen it, you shouldn't be entirely spoiled, and you can check it out.
Yeah.
This one is literally just another, hey, let's take all the things we've made popular in the entirely entertaining and fictitious story and milk that some more. Let's
Mhm.
not tell any real stories. Let's just do that. And whereas I'm sure that's fun for some people, for me, this one was just very boring. It was just, and again, it didn't even really center around Annabelle. Was the devil in this one? I think like there was a scene with some horns. I don't know. Maybe it was Loki. I just don't know because this movie is just that messy.
I
Um,
fully agree.
the girl that plays the daughter, that could have been forgotten about, the Warren's daughter in the first couple of films,
Yes.
shows up here. She gets really great acting. That's
She's
about it.
great.
Um, I mean, it's really her movie because the Warrens, they're in the beginning and they're in the end, but they're not really there. And so this is very much just a, hey, my paranormal parents went out of town. I'm gonna mess with some stuff,
Mhm.
and that's really all it is. Like, let's get the ghost back in the closet before Dad gets home. Like,
Yeah.
you can make a board game out of this or something. Like, I don't know. It's just I'm not
Don't
trying to be.
wake daddy, the
Yeah, I'm not
demon.
trying to be like really really harsh. You can watch it and enjoy it.
You
I
just
just I'm not a big fan of it. It's definitely the lowest on the list for me.
Mhm.
Um, and I think it just depends on what you like. If you like scary stuff, if you like cool little characters, if you like interesting moments, you'll get that and you'll have a good time. If you like the setup of intriguing story, really interesting characters, You don't get any of that.
No.
It's literally just let's have fun with these characters.
It's like a bottle episode if we're gonna use sitcom terms.
Yeah, it's its own thing.
It's
either you can watch it or not. It has nothing to do. And I think calling it Annabelle just kind of you're just kind of milking that one.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
And you want to know a fun fact?
Sure.
Audience, the Annabelle doll is still missing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like it was on a plane and now it's not.
So
Nobody knows where it is. It's probably somewhere on the black market, honestly.
So this one, it's one I say watch it, but don't necessarily put it in any particular order above any of the others. I'd watch everything else before coming to this one, and only watch it if you still just need a little bit more fix for some interesting stuff, because it still does have some cool elements, but it's lackluster, and a lot of the reasons I love the series is the way I want to kind of stick to putting it.
Not enough Patrick Wilson.
And that's the thing, is great actresses. So it's the daughter, her babysitter, and her babysitter's friend.
Yes.
Great. That's it. It's good stuff. It's just not what I came to The Conjuring for. I want my money back.
How am I going to eat popcorn to this?
Right. But thankfully, that did not put an end to the series, and so we did get our latest entry, The Devil Made Me Do It, out now. You can watch it on HBO Max. That's what's interesting, is you can actually stream this now if you buy into HBO Max or get a free trial from somebody.
Yeah, we were like scrolling on HBO Max looking for something to watch, and we were like, oh,
there you go. If not, you can definitely see it in theaters. Highly recommended. It's really good. It gets back to, again, I mean, and you can expect this from the Conjuring movies. It gets back to what's good about this series, which is largely the Warrens. Which it does put them a little bit more forward. It makes the story a little bit more about them, but without the fake demon. It's actually dealing with elements that are from their actual story, which is really interesting. And most interesting, and probably the only really big detail I'll reveal, it's not a demon, it's not a ghost, it's not a possession. It's a human, it's a person. It was Mr. Rogers all along, or whatever that Scooby-Doo villain dude was. I don't know.
Old Man Jenkins.
Oh, there you go. I didn't really watch the show. I didn't really like it, so I didn't grow up with traditional cartoons. I'm sorry.
You had a sad childhood.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Okay,
but not because cartoons.
Not therapy session.
Anyway,
yet.
But I really, really, really dug that it was a person. Like, it was. I mean, not in the Old Man Jenkins sense of just like
old lady Jenkins.
Yeah, it is supernatural, but yeah, it's just it was interesting because that was a spin we have not had. Everything else has been paranormal to this point, so spiritual or ghosty. So to get an actual person, a witch,
yes,
I feel like I have to say that to quantify what I mean by person. To get a dark witch doing dark things. I like that. It was
with
very
a father
intriguing.
Played by Denethor, who I cannot remember his name ever. I've watched him on so many movies and television shows, but I cannot remember.
Wasn't it
his name.
John something?
John something.
John something.
John something. Denethor eats a tomato weird.
I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, it is based on parts of a real story, I believe.
Parts.
Let's click in to see.
Parts of a court case. This was a real court case.
Yeah, that's right. So the main details that are real are the murder that happened and was claimed to be due to possession, and the court case that followed that ultimately ruled him responsible for his crimes. None of the paranormal investigation was taken into account, really. No. I mean, they basically just did not believe it. And so our story centers around the investigation part. Yes. And the Ed and Lorraine's, the story that began the no, he was possessed thing, and led into the how do we prove he was possessed?
Yeah. The opening scene of this movie, I don't want to give a lot away because I really want people to watch this movie and enjoy it.
It's brand spanking new. Yeah, we don't, but
the opening scene is incredible. One of the best bits of child acting I've ever
mentioned. Child acting with La Llorona, but this one
so good.
Wow.
So
very,
good.
Very good.
Creepy kid.
Yeah, it's one of those where it's just like, just as soon as I'm just like, man, this is a great ending to the series. Mm-hmm. This is a good, we're wrapped up. Enough. Good job. Let's go home, guys. I'm also like, dang it,
want
but it's so
more.
good. I want
Well,
more.
like, this is what made me, like, slam my fist on the table and be like, I want a new Exorcist story. I want an
Please.
updated
Actually make it
Exorcist.
scary. The book is scary.
The book is
I'll give it
scary.
to the book.
The movie's scary too.
Meh. I feel like that came out in the
You want to make another noise?
Yeah, Metallica is scary. Like that came out in the era of like anything that's not just freaking jovial and brightly colored and not in a freaking sweater vest is scary. Like, long hair and guitars, not in my Sunday school class. Like, that's the thing is like
Jesus is all right with me.
look at James Hetfield's freaking Twitter and tell me that that's someone you want your children to be scared of. No, I would trust him with my kids more than most people.
Sleep with one eye open, child.
Right, exactly. So it's just like, okay, the same people that said Metallica was satanic are the same people that were saying that The Exorcist was scary.
Cannibal Corpse
In
hadn't
my
even come out.
opinion, that's what I'm saying. Like, there's much scarier, much worse. Now, did it start a trend? Did it open doors? Yes. Is it significant? Yes. Were the Beatles significant? Yes. Do I like them? No. It's the same thing of just like, just because it was culturally impactful doesn't necessarily make it instantly likable.
If events from this week didn't get us canceled, you just got us canceled.
So I'm just saying we do need. I'm with you.
I do not subscribe to the opinions of this man.
Adaptation of the actually scary book into an actually scary movie.
Yes.
We need what we got in Exorcist 3 in the first one. Oh. We need that level of filmmaking quality and scare and just intrigue. Like that's Exorcist 3 is the best Exorcist movie, the Exorcist series. The Taking of Deborah Logan is, in my opinion, the best Exorcist movie. Exorcism. Yes. Movie. Yes. But you know what I mean. So obviously we have feelings.
You have feelings.
I do, and I just put them out there. And my other feelings are go watch movies. Devil Made Me Do It.
Yeah.
Again, it's one of those where it's an amalgamation of true and fiction. It's entertaining, it's scary, and it's also intriguing. And it is worth a watch. I mean, it's worth a free trial or it's worth a trip to the theater. It's a really, really good movie. And if you're into these movies at all, I think it's worth checking out the latest edition, if nothing more than just to have something interesting to watch. So definitely do it. And like I said, a lot of these movies are streamable. Netflix, yes. HBO, they are out there, even on Tubi. I know a lot of people don't know about Tubi, but Tubi is free, and you can stream a lot of cool things. And so you can get these movies somewhere, and I highly recommend you do for your weekend viewing.
Read The Exorcist.
Read The Exorcist. Don't watch the movie.
Watch the movie. Read The Exorcist.
More a technical achievement than a horror achievement. But anyway, so we asked some opinions. We didn't really get any, but that's fine. It's okay. We don't need you to love us and talk to us, but whatever. But no, Justin loves us, our friend and brother and familia. I don't know. I'm just saying words. We asked for opinions on these movies, and Justin has a lot of them, which we've talked about this, us and him together before. So that just goes to show we don't do this for the mic, guys. This is just us. This just happens.
And if you ever see Brightwall on Twitter, that is my brother, Justin.
Well, he finally put his name on there. Thank you.
Thanks, Justin.
Brightwall is not a name, Justin.
It's a town in Fable.
And so, I love the Conjuring movies. There are scares, but more than that, you can see a living timeline of dark events that end up connected and intertwined. Probably my favorite thing that Wan and company use is their focus on character development, specifically the love/family story of the Warrens. Watching them interact with each other and the Mullins family in the first movie, there we go, we got that name, is so wholesome. Hopeful island and dark placid lake teeming with hateful and spiteful witches, demons, and ghosts. Look at you being all poetic. Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. That's what makes these movies good. And so if nothing else, preserve the greatness and goodness of this series by watching the 3 films. The 2 you can get elsewhere, and the newest edition, Devil Made Me Do It. But if you get invested, if you get intrigued, there's all these other movies you can watch. The 3 Annabelle movies, The Nun, La Llorona. You can check all of those out. Highly recommend it. They are good movies. And at the end of the day, if we can at least get to that level of ground, then we can have a good time. We're not here to pick apart anything. We're not here to judge and all that other stuff. We're just here to
judge you. That's about it.
Our whole brand is loving what we love. And we love the Conjuring movies, and we hope you will too. That's why we talk about it. That's why we talk about anything, is to hopefully encourage you loving something we love, or you already love it, so let's just love it together. I mean, it's cool. It's polyamorous. It's awesome. Um, all fandoms are polyamorous. We can all love Star Wars, guys.
It's a harem.
So, yeah, and so there you
Speaking of
go. Let
harems.
us know if you if you've seen these movies. If you haven't, what your thoughts are. Maybe you'll go check them out after this. If not, maybe you just at least enjoyed listening to us talk about them. Whatever. But we thank you for listening. Um, so a bit of housekeeping just to let you guys know. Twitter is a very public place, and most people have probably seen it. But for anyone listening that doesn't really keep up with the Twitters, first of all, good for you.
Thank you.
Good for you. But yeah,
Kinda
in the
hyped.
past and in majority of our episodes, we've always ended off by thanking our friends. First of all, Jesse over at Game Infinite,
Thanks,
who's
Jesse.
covering a lot of gaming news right now. E3 happened. I don't know when E4 is coming, or maybe even E5, but E3 happened, and he's covering it. He's got all the details, including Breath of the Wild 2 trailer. You've got Halo Infinite news. You've got all kinds of things happening. So it's too much to talk about, but that's why Jesse's doing it and making articles. So GameInfinite.net or Game Infinite on Twitter and Instagram. Check them out for all your gaming news and needs, and for gaming creators.
Yeah.
Everything from cosplay to
A lot of
art and
great
all
folks.
of that stuff. So go support them. So we've always thanked Jesse and Game Infinite, and we've also always promoted and thanked Red 5 Network. Moving forward and starting now in this episode, we will no longer be doing that. We are thankful for the opportunity and the friendships that have come from Red 5 Network. We've met a lot of really awesome people and a lot of really positive people. But as with anything in life, a lot of people have a lot of different opinions. And it's come to our attention that we've started to get associated with wrong crowds based on certain people in podcasts. And our brand and our message of love and fun and hope is something we protect vehemently, because at the end of the day, this podcast is for us and for our good, first and foremost, and second, for your good and your enjoyment and your entertainment. Um, and we've always been very clear on that. And so getting associated with the wrong kinds of crowds is a very big deal and serious deal. And so we thought it best to go ahead and separate ourselves from Red 5 Network. We will continue to promote any voices that are positive, are loving, and are community builders, Red 5 or otherwise. But we will also draw the line very hard and harsh on anyone that goes against any of those things. We're not going to start Twitter fights. We're not going to start wars, but we're
Yeah.
also not going to be associated with that kind of negativity. And so while we're not saying Red 5 is bad, we're also not saying that we can continue to say Red 5 is good. Um, I know that's kind of hard, but it's one of those things where if you're loving and positive, and we said this on Twitter, let's be friends, let's work together, and let's promote goodness.
Yeah.
But if you're not, we can't be friends, we can't work together, and we kind of want you to stay over there.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, Red 5 Network is a amalgamation of podcasts, some good, and unfortunately some, in our opinion, not as great. And so we wanted to make sure we were clear on where we stand on that, and what we stand against as well. So, um,
Yep.
yeah,
We're,
I mean, I don't know. I
we're
don't know how
still
else to say it.
we're still the same folks.
Yeah, and to those who may be listening, who are Red 5, first of all, we've talked to most everyone about it and
Yeah.
our feelings, and we left with blessings and everything. And the ones that um, we left because know it, because they woke up blocked.
Later,
Um,
skaters.
the block button is your friend. It's just one of those things where rather than continue to um, be untrue to ourselves. It was a matter
Yeah.
of our brand, our podcast, and our community is being negatively affected by this. We are losing people. We are being painted in certain colors because of other people and their community groups. We couldn't allow that anymore. And so we wanted to make it clear and make a choice. And so, yeah, at the end of the day, again, we will support anyone who is positive, who's uplifting, and who focuses on loving what we love, and rather than starting fights and spreading hate and just all kinds of other negativity. At the end of the day, everything we're talking about is fake and not real. And although meaningful, it's not worth any of the crap that a lot of people go through or do.
No.
And so and we've preached as much in almost every episode, at least especially on the main show. We're literally doing a series just about talking about things we love because we love them. Like, our whole thing is based on, we want to be known for what we love, and we want to build up and upon what we love, not what we hate. And so we can't say one thing and continue to just by our association support another thing. So that's who we are, that's what we do, and that's what's going to be happening moving forward. And it's best just to put it in our own words so nobody can weaponize it to any other ill intent or anything. We're not changing sides. We're not, doing this for a marketing and brand choice. We're doing this because it's our personal choice.
Exactly. Because, like you said, this podcast is us.
Yeah.
And it is for us. If you listen and you like it, great. If you listen and you don't,
then find another one. Yeah, I mean,
like, later.
We're not going to support problematic actors. We're not going to bash Disney creatives, and we're not going to worship one guy in a fedora above anyone else. We're not going to get into all of these culture wars and fandom wars that so many people are, and we're not going to build our brand on clickbait and hate.
Mm-hmm.
It's just it might get numbers for some folks, and it might get you in with a drunk droid and a salty nerd, but it at the end of the day does no good for anyone, certainly not for us, and it is what it is.
Yep.
So we will continue to be positive voices, and we invite you to continue to keep us accountable. The whole reason that came about is because people contacted us out of concern. People were saying things, and so yeah.
Yep.
We invite that. We welcome that because we want to protect and we want to be as real about what we say we are about. And so, yeah, hopefully you see the truth of it, and hopefully you enjoy it. Because as long as you do, and as long as we can continue to do what we do, we will.
Mm-hmm. And if there's a problem, keep it off the timeline. Let's have a conversation.
Yeah. If you're confused, if you're wondering if we've said anything that you're not sure of, just hit us up. We'll talk about it.
Yep.
It's best just to talk. So, go watch the Conjuring movies. Be positive. Be good people. Or be goodly peoply. I don't know. Is that copyrighted? Can I say that?
I don't think it's copyrighted, but I think it is James's phrase.
Okay. Well, okay.
Be kind.
Be not bad people.
Because it's you I like.
Don't be the fandom menace.
And if you associate with the fandom menace, bye.
That's a quick bye. But
anyway.
Yeah. So we will be back. We are continuing our Love Star Wars series to continue with the themes that we're setting up here. And then I don't actually know what's next for NerdyVerse. I do. It's on the calendar, but the calendar's not here. What's next? Oh, were you just joking?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know. It might have.
I said I do like a liar.
Is it going to be Muscle Cars? Is it going to be Gods of Thunder? I don't remember.
It's not going to be Muscle Cars.
I don't know what it is. It is going to be Muscle Cars. That's on the calendar.
It's on the calendar?
Yeah, we're getting Fast 9. We got to talk about the other ones.
Have fun with that.
I'm excited. I love those movies. So something's happening, though, and we will be back to talk about it, and hopefully you'll be back to listen, and hopefully you enjoyed.
Yes.
Live long and prosper, my dudes.
Wait a minute. This is, excuse me, a damn fine cup of coffee.